Okay, so Michaela, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. My name is Michaela. I'm speaking to you on behalf of Service Europe Malta. And today we'll be speaking about traineeships at the European Commission. We can start right off. Basically, traineeships at the European Commission. What is the European Commission? So as you know, the EU has a lot of institutions, and this is the major one, the biggest one really. It is the executive of the European Union. It is responsible for initiating laws, enforcing the laws of the EU, and also managing the EU's policies. And it is made up of 27 commissioners, one from each member state, who do not represent their countries, but instead have a field of responsibility. And the day-to-day running of the European Commission is performed by its staff. There are around 32,000 employees who come from different countries and also of different fields of specialization, from lawyers, economists, IT specialists, communication experts, from different categories of work. In terms of the Blue Book traineeships, what are these all about? So basically, the European Commission hosts the largest program of traineeships. It is the best known initiative of its type. And actually, it targets mainly university graduates who have completed 3 years of, at least 3 years of studies, degree. But there is no age limit to apply. So even after finishing your studies and graduated and even having maybe started to work, you can still apply for these types of traineeships because there is no age limit. The trainees work all over the European Commission, its services, and also its agencies, both decentralized and centralized. They are mostly located in Brussels, but also they are located in Luxembourg and elsewhere across the European Union, because there are different agencies obviously located around the European Union, and also the European Commission representations in each member state. As I've said before, they are available in a wide range of fields and offer great insight into the work of the EU. Really, there is truly something for everyone. So any career will probably get you a traineeship at the European Commission, and actually it is highly recommended that those who study kind of a very specific niche area are more likely to get chosen for these types of traineeships. So when we're talking about traineeships, not just for European studies students, but also from anything that has to do from finance, communications, environment, health, digitalization. These are all areas which the European Commission works on. So it is also important to know that this competition is highly competitive. This program is very competitive because people from all over the European Union and beyond apply for this program. There is sometimes up to 20,000 applicants for one session, but it's a good thing we come from Malta because we have some preference, and also if you don't get chosen the first time, you can apply multiple times, and eventually there is a possibility that you may get chosen for this type of traineeships. We will also hear later on the experience of past trainees and how they got chosen and their experience. And apart from that, it is also a great starting point for an EU career, because once you have that step into the work of the European Commission and starting to build a network in that environment, obviously you can, the career progression is very, very likely within that institution. It is also very highly prestigious to get chosen for such a traineeship because only around 900 people from that 20,000 would get chosen. And it also boosts your CV, even if you were to return back to your home country once applying for jobs. So apart from those, just another visual overview. Basically, This traineeship is actual work with working experience with officials. It's not just about running and making coffees or making photocopies. It is nothing like that, because as a trainee at the European Commission, you can expect to make a real contribution to the work of the European Union. You get to work with different colleagues on policy, you enjoy full trust with the team, and you can propose ideas. And a great tip is to be proactive. The more proactive you are at this point, the more likely it is that you may continue a career there. You can also build a strong network of professionals, whether you dream of a career in international organizations, working abroad, in government. I think kickstarting off a career working as a trainee in the European Commission is the best way to reach your professional goals. Also, there are some employment benefits that come along with being a trainee. For example, there is 2 days of vacation leave per month, which you can take as you like. And also there is very good health insurance. You pay a small subscription, but then it is very worthwhile. And the traveling costs to and from Brussels, so at the beginning and at the end, are covered. Apart from that, you improve the skill set and knowledge. You will get an insight into the functioning of the EU institutions and the Commission itself, the work, how the procedures are at that workplace. So it's a great exposure, getting first-hand experience there. And also, it is a stepping stone to working in the EU, as I have previously mentioned, because a number of trainees have been asked to stay on as a temporary contract or contract agents after their period is over. And apart from that, you are also eligible to apply for the JPP program, which is basically a rotation program working in the European Commission for around 2 years. So being a Blue Book trainee would make you eligible for that program as well, and help you obviously stay in the European Commission. Apart from that, it is also a very good opportunity to travel around cities, neighboring cities, getting on a train, making a lot of friends and very international friends. You also have get activities among the trainees frequently as well. In different areas, for example, I don't know, hikes or pub quiz. These are all activities organized, more informal activities. And it is also a paid experience. So the grant varies depending on the location, but the standard is 1,252 euro per month. It's not a bad allowance, but from that allowance you also have to cover your expenses, your living expense, so housing and food. So these have to be taken from that allowance. Don't feel pressured that you have to do this by a certain time. It is very common that people who are trainees are well in their 20s, usually they are around 25, 26. So if you apply for the first time and you don't get accepted, just keep it in mind, because trainees usually really work hard to get accepted, because it's very prestigious, really. Now, where to find all the necessary details and access the application? There is, if you just Google search Blue Book Traineeships, the website will come up. It's traineeships.ec.europa.eu, and it is that website right there. In terms of traineeships of the Blue Book, there are 2 types. There are the administrative and there are the translation traineeships. In terms of administrative, this is the most common type and the one in which the majority of people will participate in. And opportunities are available in the Director Generals, the DGs, the representations, the services and agencies of the European Commission. So they are very there's a wide array of opportunities where you can work in. And the trainees' daily work would consist of supporting the day-to-day work of the unit. So literally giving a very good input in the work of that unit. In terms of eligibility, maybe it's important to take note of this. One needs to have a university degree or equivalent of at least 3 years of study, so corresponding to a complete cycle bachelor's degree. Have very good knowledge, so a C level, of 2 EU official languages, one of which must be English or French or German. So in case of Malta, most Maltese citizens would probably speak Maltese and English. So English as a requirement is fine. And then you can also list Maltese as another language depending on the certification that you have. So if you have an O level, it would be a B level, and if you have an A level, it would be a C level. Now, you also you cannot have prior work experience of any kind in excess of 6 weeks paid in any EU institution, body or agency, EU delegations with members of parliament or advocates general in the European Court of Justice. So it is important that if you have done any sort of traineeship, even if it wasn't paid, unfortunately, you aren't eligible for the Blue Book traineeship. In terms of the translation traineeship, it is with the Director General for Translation. There is a separate application for this specific type. So when you access the website and access the application form, it gives you the option to either press the first one, which is admin, or the second one, which is translation. So there are 2 different applications. And also, you must be able to translate into your main target language, which is normally your native language, from 2 other official EU languages. So that's the main difference. And the trainees' daily work would consist of translating, revising translations, or researching terminology, among obviously other tasks. The eligibility is the same as the administrative, so the 3 points before the bachelor's degree, and also that you haven't done any work experience and that you have the qualifications, and that these are the other 3 criteria, that your main target language must be one of the EU official languages, that the first source language must be a working language, therefore English, French, or German, and the second source language can be any of the EU official languages. The level has to be B2 at least, but even better if you have a C1 or C2 level of that language. Now, in terms of application scoring, how do you get more points? How do you distinguish yourself from the rest? The more things you add to the application, the better, because you will be scored for everything on the application. It is important to list everything correctly and truthfully, because you have to upload supporting documents. Now, additional points are given for postgraduate studies, relevant work experience, specific fields of studies being a rare field of study, additional languages, and also having an international profile, which means studying abroad, going for Erasmus, working abroad, volunteering experience abroad perhaps, which shows that you are able to work in an international environment. And also, it is important to note that it is not compulsory to list a mother tongue, a native language, and no points are awarded for mother tongues. So if you list Maltese as a language, ideally, you list it as a B level or a C level, rather than a native language or a mother tongue, because you will not get any points for this, unfortunately. In terms of procedure, we'll just go over it very quickly. So you submit the application. First of all, you access the portal, the website, Traineeships, the one that I showed you before. You click on the application. Right now it is open and it will remain open until the end of August. In the application, everything is very well, it is very easy to fill in. You have a drop-down menu and you can provide any other comments on specific sections. In terms of, you also have to upload the supporting documents at the application stage, which is a change that has happened from previous years to this session. In terms of evaluation, your application will then be assessed automatically by a system. There are quotas applied by nationality to ensure a spread of nationalities. And then it will move on to the eligibility check, where your supporting documents are verified by a committee of independent evaluators against the information provided in your applications. So they will check the application, check your documents, and make sure that everything is aligned. Then we move on to the virtual Blue Book. If you pass the eligibility check, you will then be requested or be informed that you have joined a virtual Blue Book, which will consist of around 3,000 successful candidates. And unfortunately, there are 3 times more candidates than places available. So this is very narrowed down. I will go into this section more in detail a bit later. In terms of selection, once you are in the virtual Blue Book, you can then apply for 3 traineeship positions. And then you can have interviews with the Director Generals or the units by phone, and then you may receive a placement offer, which is issued by the Traineeships office, and then we move on to the candidate decision, whereby the candidate has to either accept that placement offer or reject it. It is very important to note that as of this session, if you reject an application, you cannot accept another one. So you are automatically excluded from any future, well, not future, but from that session's other posts. But obviously you can apply in future sessions. So just an overview, application procedure, you have to register an account, complete the application, and then submit. In terms of selection procedure, they will receive the application, they will assess it and make the eligibility check. It moves on to the virtual Blue Book and then selection of candidates. And it is, if you want to learn more on how the procedure actually works, there is a very good visual presentation kind of on the website on the recruitment procedure. You can access it via that link. And it is a step-by-step explaining what I have previously gone through. Changes in the application from previous years to this session and going forward. As I've said already, the supporting documents must now be uploaded all at application stage. So make sure to start gathering from this point if you are interested in applying all the documents, because unfortunately, if you don't have supporting evidence for each and everything you have claimed that you know or have done, it is important to start gathering it. Get letter of recommendations that you have worked at that place, transcripts, especially university transcripts, any Erasmus Plus transcript as well. It is very, very important. Also, they have removed the character limits, so you can write as much as you want to provide any other information, but it is important to keep it to the point, because the less and more concise information there is, the easier it is for evaluators to really get a grasp of your profile. And the other sections at the end, which were previously the general reasons for applying, the areas of interest, suitability for the profile, and also the Director General preference or the unit preference, have been removed from the application. So at this stage, you just have to submit a profile of yourself and not where you want to work in. That will come up at a later stage in the virtual Blue Book. After you're submitting your application, it is very, very important to keep accessing the portal and also checking emails to see if there is any update. You also have to familiarize yourself with the different places of employment. The next slide will give you a good overview of this. And you can access this information of the different places of employment through the website indicated there, or just Google European Commission Department and it will come up. You have to see which work interests you most and where your personal and professional experience is most relevant. So don't just apply somewhere and not be able to justify why you are applying to that place. So if you are applying in DG Communications, make sure that you have some sort of either European Studies Bachelor's with Communications, or have studied communications, or have worked in communications. Some sort of supporting interest has to be there to make yourself relevant for that post. And also at this point, once you've submitted the application, start preparing motivation letters for the places of employment you are interested in. So the different places of employment of the Blue Book traineeships is varied. You can work in directorate generals, you can work in representations in member states, in executive agencies, for example, SINEA or ESIMA, in decentralized agencies, for example, the EEA, the European Environment Agency, or EFCA, and also institutions such as the European Union External Action Service, and the EDPS, the European Data Protection Surveillance Agency. So these are the different places of employment. Obviously, there is much, much more than I just listed there. So it's important, especially for the directorate generals, because there are a lot, to really go into detail on where you would think you would fit best. Because there is a change in procedure. Because now, when candidates are in the virtual Blue Book, so once they have paused the selection procedure and have moved on to the virtual Blue Book, which, as I've said previously, around 3,000 successful candidates are on it, you will receive a notification which will explain the following: that you have a 1-week deadline to look through the posts on a website, on a portal, and you have to choose 3 places, posts you would be interested in, and you have to upload 3 motivation letters, so 1 motivation letter per post, and also fill in a general motivation paragraph, kind of 1,000 characters, which will be online. So the 3 motivation letters will have to be uploaded in PDF format, and then you would also need to fill in a general motivation saying why you are interested and would like to work for the Commission in general. This 1-week deadline is very, very important. So you obviously have to check frequently your email to make sure that once the notification is out, you are knowledgeable of it and can apply immediately, because once there are enough applications registered for a specific post, the position will disappear from the list. So this is very important. So if you get a notification that you made it to the virtual Blue Book, please stay on alert and access the portal immediately and start looking at the vacancies. In terms of timeframes, as you know, we are now looking to apply for the March 2023. So the applications opened on the 20th of July and will end on the 31st of August at midday. Please, if you are very interested in applying for a Blue Book traineeship, start your application immediately. Start gathering all the documents, start filling in the sections, because it's quite a long application. It's not just uploading a CV and that's it. The evaluation will take place between September and November, and then the selection will be between December and February, and the traineeship will start on the 1st of March 2023 and last until the 31st July 2023. So it's quite a long procedure. I think it's worth it. It's very prestigious. And speaking from experience, because I was also a past Blue Book trainee, I think it's something that if you are a graduate and are lost from where to start from, I think this is the perfect work exposure you could ever start with. Now we'll move on to a few remarks by Mr. David Schembri, who is the language officer at the European Commission representation in Malta. He works in the Director General for Translation and will provide some information on the translation traineeships, so the Blue Book traineeships in translation. David, I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Michaela. I won't take up a lot of your time because Michaela has covered everything. So the DGT is the Commission's translation service. It is the biggest translation service in the world. And the Maltese department has around 50 employees, most of which are based in Luxembourg rather than Brussels. There are every Blue Book session, we have places for 2 translators. Ideally, we're looking for people who have studied languages or translation. However, if you have a strong interest in languages, if you speak 3 languages and have a very good grasp of Maltese, especially written, you know, you have to, translation is effectively writing. We would be very happy to have you. It is, as Michaela mentioned, you are working, but there's also a lot of mentorship going on. So once you join the Commission as a trainee, you will be trained in the translation tools that we use. You will be assigned a mentor who will be monitoring your progress and teaching you. And aside from that, you're also participating in what is a very structured and it's a very structured traineeship. It's quite unlike other internships in the private sector where you're just asked to work for a pittance. You should be looking at the traineeships at DGT or the Commission in general as a learning experience, as part of your education. And our past trainees have gone on to either work for the Commission. There are trainees that now work in the Court of Auditors, European Parliament, the European Agency for Asylum. It is also very, very good training if you plan to work as a freelancer, because you are working in the institution, you know how things work, you know what tools we're using, you know what's expected of you. And of course, you're meeting people from all over the European Union, you're making new connections. So it is definitely something that I would recommend. It is in Luxembourg. And what's important is that if you have to write a motivation letter at some point in the application, is that you write it in Maltese, because otherwise there's no way that we'll know that you can actually write Maltese. So that's all there is from my end. I'm going to leave you, yes, that's my email address. If you have any questions about traineeships or indeed about translation in general, and you'd like to explore translation and perhaps see what translation in the EU is, feel free to contact me. We'll set up a call or a meeting. And I wish you all the best in your careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. It was very nice to hear from you. We will now move on to the Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to write them in the chat box or unmute yourselves and maybe turn on your cameras, and we will be able to reply, either myself, my colleague Faith, or also perhaps David or Charlene Caruana from the Permanent Representation of Malta to the European Union. My colleague Faith will moderate the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to write them down.
So it seems that so far we haven't received any questions. I don't know if from your end, Michaela or Charlene would like to clarify some points or add some more to the information that was already provided. It's entirely from your end, or else we can move on to the speakers that we have planned.
Perhaps Charlene, if you can come in and maybe mention any points or clarify.
Maybe Charlene, you can provide some more information on the JPP as a career progression should they opt for the traineeship.
Yes, first of all, thank you for organizing this webinar. As a background on myself, I cover staff regulations and anything in relation to EU careers from the permanent representation side, and we are working very closely with SEM on these webinars. So as Michaela mentioned, there has been a change in procedure. So it's very, very important that you read well the frequently asked questions that are listed on the website before you start applying, and that you dedicate some time whilst going through the application. Sometimes there are mistakes that can be avoided. For instance, when it comes to supporting documents, now they are listing what supporting documents you require. So if you just, for instance, upload a CV, that's not enough. It's not considered as supporting document. And also from your end, you may be disqualified immediately if you don't provide supporting documents. So that is something from our side that needs to be clarified. Also, for instance, as Michaela mentioned, we always had this issue of mother tongue. So basically, we had a number of Maltese who are listing two mother tongues, Maltese and English, and then the other languages were considered as too weak in order to be given any points. So as Michaela mentioned, now that there has been this change in procedure, it is important that if you have, for instance, an O-level or A-level standard of education, or even intermediate, do not list it as a native language or a mother tongue, but list Maltese, for instance, as other language, and provide the supporting documents, and you will be given points. So basically, if you know, well, English, Maltese, and another language or two, you will be given marks on 4 languages. Whereas if you list, for instance, Maltese as a mother tongue, and you know 4 languages, you will be given points on 3 languages only. When it comes to the JPP, it is a program that started in 2018. And basically, this program is like the fast track to the EPSO competition. So basically, if you apply for the Blue Book traineeship for the Commission or the executive agencies now, you are eligible to apply for the Junior Professional Program. Usually it is offered twice a year, and you will see this information on the intra of the Commission, which is called CISPER, and you will be able to apply for there. So something that you have to consider when you are applying, for instance, for decentralized agencies, you don't have the same opportunities as you will have when you are applying, for instance, with the Commission or the executive agencies. Unfortunately, the JPP is not offered, for instance, by Frontex. So if you are applying for Frontex, then you need to see, for instance, the opportunities that are available at the time in order to check whether there will be opportunities. So my recommendation would be to focus mostly on the biggest employer, that is the Commission, and then you have the executive agencies. We hope that by time these programs are also offered by the other agencies and the institutions, but for now, they aren't. So basically it works like this. You apply, then a number of people are selected in order to sit for the computer-based testing, it's called. You can get more information on this if you visit the EPSO website. And then if you pass, you will be posted with a DG for 6 months, a second DG for another 6 months, and then in the second year, you will be posted with the first Directorate General. And this will take place for 2 years. Then there will be an internal competition, and if you pass, you become a permanent official. So basically, during those 2 years, you are like considered as a temporary agent. Till now, unfortunately, we didn't have any Maltese who were selected as JPPs. We had some very good ones who managed to pass till the last stage. But in view that it is very competitive and only between 25 and 30 are chosen, so far we didn't successfully manage to have any JPPs, but you never know. You can be one of the lucky ones. From our side, we encourage traineeships not only as a stepping stone, but also to get a taster of whether you are able, for instance, to live abroad. Sometimes you may have people who would tell you, I've spent 6 months here, it was a nice experience, but I would prefer to go back, for instance, to the capital in order to work there for personal reasons. And usually the ones who were actually traineeships usually tend to find a job immediately, and especially if you are applying for the public service or in the public administration, you are usually absorbed immediately. For instance, taking Michaela, we tend to use her experience very much because she was an ex-Blue Book, and sometimes she can give us information on her personal experience as well. So it always helps to have people who actually worked in the institutions, even for a short term. And that experience is also useful, for instance, if you consider working in an embassy or at the permanent representation, like I do. And it's always good to know how the European Union works on the inside. So that information is very useful. Something that you can consider as well this time round, when it comes to the preference for 3 posts, it won't be the drop down, it won't be just by DG as it used to be before. Now you can choose, for instance, by area. So let's say that you are interested in fisheries. You can use the drop down, click on fisheries, and you will have all the posts available in, for instance, the Commission, executive agencies, and even the centralized agencies. So I highly recommend that you try to use by area, because as Michaela mentioned, for instance, if you have a background in communication, in the past, there were people who were just applying, for instance, for Digicom as a first preference, but communication, IT, HR, budget, finance, these are areas that are required for each and every DG and for each and every institution and agency. So do not just limit yourself to certain DGs. I would try to use by area in order to target more, and you will receive more posts where you can apply. So this is something that is new, and it gives you access to more information, because Before, when it was by DG, many people were applying for certain DGs, whilst others were not getting any applicants. It is always very, very important to also check the organization chart of where you are applying. This information is all available online. So if you would like to apply for the Blue Book, it's always very, very important to conduct research before you are actually applying. And on these issues, Sam and the permanent representation will be hosting a workshop whereby Sam can give you more information and details on this. And I leave the floor for any questions, and even afterwards, if you want to sort of ask more questions, we are here to assist. Thank you.
So thank you, Charlene. So just to start off, we have 3 questions. I'm going to address the first one from Kieran Farouja. Are candidates who have just completed and obtained a degree in this June eligible for this opportunity? Yes, they are. What is important to note is that since you have to provide proof that you completed your degree, it's important that you have received all your results, including your thesis results. And if you are interested in applying, please contact the registrar at the university so they can provide you with a transcript that has been signed and stamped by the university. And please, when in the application form you have to insert the date when you are going to graduate, do not take into consideration any June dates or September dates. Only take into consideration the date that you will receive your graduation certificate. This will be detailed in the transcript that the university will provide you. Please, if you are really interested, make sure to have this document sorted, or else you will not be eligible to proceed with this opportunity. And in the case of resits, you will also not be eligible for this opportunity. If that's a bit clearer now, if not, we'll come back to it later. Let's go on to our second question from Barbara Porovecchio. Are language certifications issued from university valid for the traineeship, or should the certification be the formal ones? As far as I am aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michaela and Charlene, if you have, for example, a degree plus certificate for German, French, or English, it should be fine. And if you have, for example, your A-level certificates or your O-level certificates, those are enough proof. No need to have an English professional course for it, just a certificate. If you know any other language but don't have a certificate, please do not list it. List only ones you have proof for. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Michaela and Charlene, on this.
If you have any certificate of any kind that proves your knowledge of that language, that is enough supporting evidence.
Exactly. Okay, and regarding supporting documents,
I think David can come in on this, because
yes, David, yes, please.
As far as I know, even mentioning that your university degree has been carried out in English,
Okay.
It's worth making a note saying the language of instruction of my university was English.
All right, great. And I think the University of Malta can issue a statement from their end if you're having any issues, and it can be signed, etc. So it shouldn't be an issue whatsoever with respect to languages. Does anyone else have anything to add on this point?
What I would also add regarding certifications is to be as thorough as possible. It requires work, it requires commitment. When I had applied to join the commission, I had never done a traineeship, I just applied for the competition. It took some work. So I would encourage you to just get in, find all the documents you need, do it beforehand and keep them handy, because you also find them useful in any other job applications you may be doing. But it's also very useful to just treat it thoroughly. Perhaps if you need to write a motivation letter or do any text, I would encourage you to write it on a Word document before, edit it, see that it's good, and then upload it into the website. It's just better for you to be able to write something crafted properly and then upload it, because when you're on a screen, on a website screen, you tend to have this sense of a fight or flight of urgency, which doesn't help you write well. So I would encourage you to write all your supporting evidence and so on a Word document and copy and paste. It's not an official requirement, but it's a tip.
Okay, great. Thank you for that tip, David. Any tips you can get, it's very important from people who have some experience on this. Okay, so last question from Andrew McAuliffe. So regarding supporting documentation for previous roles or jobs, would a letter of recommendation suffice? Is anything else expected? Michaela and Charlene, I give this over to you.
So basically, when it comes to roles and jobs, yes. However, if you, for instance, need to provide the supporting documents, for instance, when it comes to a transcript, etc., obviously you need to upload the transcript. So it depends on the supporting documents that you are uploading. When it comes to jobs, it's always the same. A letter of recommendation, a reference letter sort of would suffice, yes. And also with regards to the last question, I think it was answered here. The starting dates,
they are fixed.
yes, they are fixed, and they are also always uploaded on the website for each round.
Exactly. Okay, great. So if there are any other questions, please include them in the chat box and we'll try and get back to them as we go along. Now we're going on to our next part, and now we're going to have our speakers. These are past Blue Book trainees who will be sharing their experience, not just from a technical side, but also what their life was and how the career progression has been. So our first speaker today is Miss Karen Gauchi. Karen, I believe you are here already with us, right?
I think
Yes, hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you. I would just need to stop the recording, that's all. Thank you for reminding me, Michaela.